guys, back here we're gonna read 2 more chapters out of Number the Stars. I don't really have an update yet. I haven't heard any of the latest news or anything. If I did, I would always start out with that. Thank you, Cash. As you know, the boys sometimes like to interrupt our videos, so I apologize if that is the case today. Hey, we just played outside. You can go now. Go lay down. Thank you. So yeah, I apologize for any inconvenience that might cause. So we are starting off with chapter 3. No, we're not going to do that though. No, I don't. We just played. We met Anne-Marie and we met Ellen and Christy and both of their moms. We have learned that this is taking place during World War II. They are not in the United States. They are in Copenhagen. And they've been talking about how there's some rebellion and the resistance that are fighting against the German soldiers in secret, the people of Denmark. So they are Danish. They are in Denmark, and it is currently occupied by German soldiers or Nazi soldiers. So, chapter 3. Where is Mrs. Hirsch? The days of September passed, one after the other, much the same. Anne-Marie and Ellen walked to school together and home again, always now taking the longer way, avoiding the tall soldier and his partner. Christy dwaddled just behind them, or scampered ahead, never out of their sight. The two mothers still had their coffee together in the afternoons. They began to knit mittens as the days grew slightly shorter and the first leaves began to fall from the trees, because another winter was coming. Everyone remembered the last one. There was no fuel now for the homes and apartments in Copenhagen, and the winter nights were terribly cold. Like the other families in their building, the Johansons had opened the old chimney and installed a little stove to use for heat when they could find coal to burn. Mama used it too sometimes for cooking, because electricity was rationed now. At night, they used candles for light. Sometimes Ellen's father, a teacher, complained in frustration because he couldn't see in the dim light to correct his students' papers. Soon you will have to add another blanket to your bed, Mama said one morning as she and Anne-Marie tidied the bedroom. Christy and I are lucky to have each other for warmth in the winter, Anne-Marie said. Poor Ellen, to have no sisters. She will have to snuggle in with her Mama and Papa when it gets cold, Mama said, smiling. I remember when Christy slept between you and Papa. She was supposed to stay in her crib, but in the middle of the night she would climb out and get in with you, Anne-Marie said, smoothing the pillows on the bed. Then she hesitated and glanced at her mother, fearful that she had said the wrong thing. The wrong thing that would bring a pained look to her mother's face. The days when little Christy slept in Mama and Papa's room were also the days that Lisa and Anne-Marie shared this bed. But Mama was laughing quietly. I remember too, she said. Sometimes she wet the bed in the middle of the night. I did not, Christy said haughtily from the bedroom doorway. I never ever did that. Mama, still laughing, knelt and kissed Christy on the cheek. Time to leave for school, girls, she said. She began to button Christy's jacket. Oh dear, she said suddenly. Look, this button has broken right in half. Anne-Marie, take Christy with you after school to the little shop where Mrs. Hirsch sells thread and buttons. See if you can buy just one to match the others on her jacket. I'll give you some kroner. It shouldn't cost very much. But after school, when the girls stopped at the shop, which had been there for so long as Anne-Marie could remember, they found it closed. There was a new padlock on the door and a sign, but the sign was in German, and they couldn't read the words. I wonder if Mrs. Hirsch is sick, Anne-Marie said as they walked away. I saw her Saturday, Ellen said. She was with her husband and their son. They all looked just fine. Or at least the parents looked just fine. The son always looked like a horror, she giggled. Anne-Marie made a face. The Hirsch family lived in the neighborhood, so they had seen the boy Samuel often. He was a tall teenager with thick glasses, stooped shoulders, and unruly hair. He rode a bicycle to school, leaning forward and squinting, wrinkling his nose to nudge his glasses into place. His bicycle had wooden wheels, now that rubber tires weren't available, and it creaked and clattered on the street. I think the Hirsches all went on vacation to the seashore, Christy announced. And I suppose they took a big basket of pink cupcakes with them, Anne-Marie said sarcastically to her sister. Yes, I suppose they did, Christy replied. Anne-Marie and Ellen exchanged looks that meant Christy is so dumb. No one in Copenhagen had taken a vacation at the seashore since the war began. There were no pink frosted cupcakes, and there hadn't been for months. Still, Anne-Marie thought, looking back at the shop before they turned the corner, where was Mrs. Hirsch? The Hirsch family had gone somewhere. Why else would they close the shop? Mama was troubled when she heard the news. Are you sure? She asked several times. We can find another button someplace, Anne-Marie reassured her. Or we can take one from the bottom of the jacket and move it up. It won't show very much. But it didn't seem to be the jacket that worried Mama. Are you sure the sign was in German? She asked. Maybe you didn't look carefully. Mama, it had a swastika on it. Her mother turned away with a distracted look. Anne-Marie, watch your sister for a few moments and begin to peel the potatoes for dinner. I will be right back. Where are you going? Anne-Marie asked her as her mother started for the door. I want to talk to Mrs. Rosen. Puzzled, Anne-Marie watched her mother leave the apartment. She went to the kitchen and opened the door to the cupboard where the potatoes were kept. Every night now it seemed they had potatoes for dinner, and very little of anything else. Can you lay down, please, if you're going to sit right here? No, I need you to lay down, please. I'm reading a story. No. Lay down, please. No. Not on my lap. That is not a good place for you to lay down. Cash, lay down. Thank you. Anne-Marie was almost asleep when there was a light knock on the bedroom door. Candlelight appeared as the door opened and her mother stepped in. Are you asleep, Anne-Marie? No, why? Is something wrong? Nothing's wrong, but I'd like you to get up and come out to the living room. Peter's here. Papa and I want to talk to you. Anne-Marie jumped out of bed, and Christy grunted in her sleep. Peter? She hadn't seen him in a long time. There was something frightening about his being here at night. Copenhagen had a curfew, and no citizens were allowed out after 8 o'clock. It was very dangerous, she knew, for Peter to visit at this time, but she was delighted that he was here. Though his visits were always hurried, they almost seemed secret somehow, in a way she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Still, it was a treat to see Peter. It brought back memories of happier times, and her parents loved Peter too. They said he was like a son. Barefoot, she ran into the living room and into Peter's arms. He grinned, kissed her on the cheek, and ruffled her hair. You've grown taller since I saw you last, he told her. You're all legs. Anne-Marie laughed. I won the girls' foot race last Friday at school, she told him proudly. Where have you been? We've missed you. My work takes me all over, Peter explained. Look, I brought you something. One for Christy, too. He reached into his pocket and handed her 2 seashells. Anne-Marie put the smaller one on the table to save it for her sister. She held the other in her hands, turning it in the light, looking at the rigid, pearly surface. It was so like Peter to bring just the right gift. For your mama and papa, I brought something more practical. 2 bottles to drink. Mama and Papa smiled and raised their glasses. Papa took a sip and wiped the foam from his upper lip. Then his face became more serious. Anne-Marie, he said, Peter tells us that the Germans have issued orders closing many stores run by Jews. Jews? Anne-Marie repeated. Is Mrs. Hirsch Jewish? Is that why the button shop is closed? Why have they done that? Peter leaned forward. It is their way of tormenting. For some reason, they want to torment Jewish people. It has happened in other countries. They have taken their time here, let us relax a little, but now it seems to be starting. But why the button shop? What harm is a button shop? Mrs. Hirsch is such a nice lady. Even Samuel, he's a dope, but he would never harm anyone. How could he? He can't even see with his thick glasses. Then Anne-Marie thought of something else. If they can't sell their buttons, how will they earn a living? Friends will take care of them, Mama said gently. That's what friends do. Anne-Marie nodded. Mama was right, of course. Friends and neighbors would go to the home of the Hirsch family, would take them fish and potatoes and breads and herbs for making tea. Maybe Peter would even take them a beer. They would be comfortable until their shop was allowed to open up again. Then suddenly she sat up, eyes wide. Mama, Papa, the Rosens are Jewish too. Her parents nodded, their faces serious and drawn. I talked to Sophie Rosen this afternoon after you told me about the button shop, Mama said. She knows what is happening, but she doesn't think that it will affect them. Anne-Marie thought she understood, and she relaxed. Mr. Rosen doesn't have a shop. He's a teacher. They can't close the whole school. She looked at Peter with question in her eyes. Can they? I think the Rosens will be all right, he said. But you have to keep an eye on your friend Ellen and stay away from the soldiers. Your mother told me about what happened on Ulster Brigade. Anne-Marie shrugged. She had almost forgotten about the incident. It was nothing. They were only bored and looking for someone to talk to, I think. She turned to her father. Papa, do you remember what you heard the boy say to the soldier, that all of Denmark would be the king's bodyguard? Her father smiled. I had never forgotten it, he said. Well, Anne-Marie said slowly, now I think that all of Denmark must be bodyguards for the Jews as well. So we shall be, Papa replied. Peter stood. I must go, he said. And you, Longlegs? It is way past your bedtime now, he hugged Anne-Marie again. Later, once more in bed beside the warm cocoon of her sister, Anne-Marie remembered how her father had said 3 years before that he would die to protect the king. That her mother would too. And Anne-Marie, 7 years old, had announced proudly that she would also. Now she was 10, with long legs and no more silly dreams of pink frosted cupcakes. And now she and all the Danes were to be bodyguard for Ellen and Ellen's parents and all the Denmark's Jews. Would she die to protect them? Truly? Anne-Marie was honest enough to admit there in the darkness to herself that she wasn't sure. For a moment she felt frightened, but she pulled the blanket up higher around her neck and relaxed. It was all imaginary anyway, not real. It was only in fairy tales that people were called upon to be so brave, to die for one another. Not in real-life Denmark. Oh, there were soldiers, that was true. And the courageous resistance leaders who sometimes lost their lives, that was true too. But ordinary people like the Rosens and the Johansons, Anne-Marie admitted to herself, snuggling there in the quiet dark, that she was glad to be an ordinary person who would never be called upon for courage. I wonder if that's some foreshadowing that's happening here. All right, chapter 4. It will be a long night. Alone in the apartment while Mama was out shopping with Christy, Anne-Marie and Ellen were sprawled on the living room floor playing with paper dolls. They had cut the dolls from Mama's magazines, old ones she had saved from past years. The paper ladies had old-fashioned hairstyles and clothes, and the girls had given them names from Mama's very favorite book. Mama had told Anne-Marie and Ellen the entire story of Gone with the Wind, and the girls thought it was the most interesting and romantic thing, the king and queen of fairy tales that Christy loved. Come on, Melanie, Anne-Marie said, walking her doll across the edge of the rug. Let's dress for the ball. All right, Scarlet, I'm coming, Ellen replied in a sophisticated voice. She was a talented performer. She often played the leading roles in school's dramatics. Games of the imagination were always fun when Ellen played. The door opened and Christy stomped in, her face tear-stained and glowering. Mama followed her with an exasperated look and set a package down on the table. I won't, Christy sputtered. I won't ever wear them. Not if you chain me in a prison and beat me with sticks. Anne-Marie giggled and looked questioningly at her mother. Mrs. Johansson sighed. I bought Christy some new shoes, she explained. She's outgrown her old ones. Goodness, Christy, Ellen said. I wish my mother would get me some new shoes. I love new things, and it's so hard to find them in the stores. Not if you go to a fish store, Christy bellowed. But most mothers wouldn't make their daughter wear ugly fish shoes. Kristen, Mama said soothingly, you know it wasn't a fish store, and we were lucky to find shoes at all. Christy sniffed. Show them, she commanded. Show Anne-Marie and Ellen how ugly they are. Mama opened the package and took out a pair of little girl's shoes. She held them up, and Christy looked away in disgust. You know there's no leather anymore, Mama explained, but they found a way to make shoes out of fish skin. I don't think these are too ugly. Anne-Marie and Ellen looked at the fish skin shoes. Anne-Marie took one in her hand and examined it. It was odd looking, the fish scales were visible, but it was a shoe, and her sister needed shoes. It's not so bad, Christy said, it's not so bad, Christy, she said, lying a little. Ellen turned the other one in her hand. You know, she said, it's only the color that's ugly. Green, Christy wailed. I will never, ever wear green shoes. In our apartment, Ellen told her, my father has a jar of black ink. Would you like these shoes better if they were black? She frowned. Maybe I would, Christy said finally. Well then, Ellen told her, tonight, if your mama doesn't mind, I'll take your shoes home and ask my father to make them black for you with his ink. Mama laughed. I think that would be a fine improvement. What do you think, Christy? Christy pondered. Could he make them shiny? She asked. I want them shiny. Ellen nodded. I think he could. I think they'll be quite pretty, black and shiny. Christy nodded. All right then, she said, but you mustn't tell anyone that they're fish. I don't want anyone to know. She took her new shoes, holding them disdainfully, and put them on a chair. Then she looked with interest at the paper dolls. Can I play too? Christy asked. Can I have a doll? She squatted beside Anne-Marie and Ellen on the floor. Sometimes, Anne-Marie thought, Christy was such a pest, always butting in. But the apartment was small. There was no other place for Christy to play, and if they told her to go away, Mama would scold. Here, Anne-Marie said, and handed her sister a cut-out little girl doll. We're playing Gone with the Wind. Melanie and Scarlett are going to a ball. You can beat Bonnie. She's Scarlett's daughter. Christy danced her doll up and down happily. I'm going to the ball. I'm going to the ball, she announced in a high pretend voice. Ellen giggled. A little girl wouldn't go to a ball. Let's make them go someplace else. Let's make them go to Tivoli. Tivoli, Anne-Marie began to laugh. That's in Copenhagen. Gone with the Wind is in America. Tivoli, 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 little Christy sang, twirling her doll in a circle. It doesn't matter because it's only a game anyway, Ellen pointed out. Tivoli can be over there by the chair. Come, Scarlett, she said, using her doll voice. We shall go to Tivoli to dance and watch the fireworks, and maybe there will be some handsome men there. Bring your silly daughter, Bonnie, so she can ride on the carousel. Anne-Marie grinned and walked her Scarlett toward the chair, and Ellen the chair that Ellen had designated as Tivoli. She loved Tivoli Gardens, in the heart of Copenhagen. Her parents had taken her there often when she was a little girl. She remembered the music and the brightly colored lights, and the carousel and ice cream, and especially the magnificent fireworks in the evening. The huge colored splashes of bursts of light in the evening sky. I remember the fireworks best of all, she commented to Ellen. Me too, Christy said. I remember the fireworks. Silly, Anne-Marie scoffed. You've never seen the fireworks. Tivoli Gardens were closed now. The German occupation forces had burned part of it, perhaps in a way of punishing the fun-loving Danes for their light-hearted pleasures. Christy drew herself up, her small shoulders stiff. I did too, she said belligerently. It was my birthday. I woke up in the night and I could hear the booms, and there were lights in the sky. Mama said it was fireworks for my birthday. Walker, Walker, Walker. Sorry. Then Anne-Marie remembered. Christy's birthday was late in August. Walker! Come here! Walker, come here. Walker. Sit down. Sit down. Sit. Sit. Lay down. Lay down. Lay down. Hey. Lay down. Stay. Then Anne-Marie remembered. Christy's birthday was in late August, and that night, only a month before, she, too, had been awakened and frightened by the sound of explosions. Christy was right. The sky in the southeast had been ablaze, and Mama had comforted her by calling it a birthday celebration. Imagine such fireworks for a little girl 5 years old, Mama had said, sitting on their bed, holding the dark curtain aside to look through the window at the lighted sky. The next evening's newspaper had told the sad truth. The Danes had destroyed their own naval fleet, blowing up the vessels one by one, as the Germans approached to take over the ships for their own use. How sad the king must be, Anne-Marie had heard Mama say to Papa when they read the news. How proud, Papa replied. It made Anne-Marie feel sad and proud, too, to picture the tall, aging king, perhaps with tears in his blue eyes, as he looked at the remains of his small navy, which now lay submerged and broken in the harbor. I don't want to play anymore, Ellen, she said suddenly and put her paper doll to the side. I have to go home anyway, Ellen said. I have to help Mama with the house cleaning. Thursday is our New Year. Did you know that? Why is it yours? Asked Christy. Isn't it our New Year too? No, it's the Jewish New Year. That's just for us. But if you want, Christy, you can come that night and watch Mama light the candles. Anne Marie and Christy had often been invited to watch Mrs. Rosen light the Sabbath candles on Friday evenings. She covered her head with a cloth and said a special prayer in Hebrew. As she did so, Anne Marie always stood very quietly, awed to watch. Even Christy, usually such a chatterbox, was always still at that time. They didn't understand the words or the meaning, but they could feel what a special time it was for the Rosens. Yes, Christy agreed happily. I'll come watch your mama light the candles, and I'll wear my new black shoes. But this time was to be different. Leaving for school on Thursday with her sister, Anne Marie saw the Rosens walking to the synagogue early in the morning, dressed in their best clothes. She waved to Ellen, who waved back happily. Lucky Ellen, Anne Marie said to Christy. She doesn't have to go to school today. But she probably has to sit very, very still like we do in church, Christy pointed out. That's no fun. That afternoon, Mrs. Rosen knocked at their door, but didn't come inside. Instead, she spoke for a long time in a hurried, tense voice to Anne Marie's mother in the hall. When Mama returned, her face was worried, but her voice was cheerful. Girls, she said, we have a nice surprise. Tonight, Ellen will be coming to stay overnight and to be our guest for a few days. It isn't often that we have a visitor. Christy clapped in her hands in delight. But Mama, Anne Marie said in dismay, it's their new year. They were going to celebrate at home. Ellen told me that her mother managed to get a chicken someplace, and she was going to roast it. A first roast chicken in a year or more. Their plans have changed, Mama said briskly. Mr. and Mrs. Rosen have been called away to visit some relatives, so Ellen will stay with us. Now, let's get busy and put clean sheets on your bed. Christy, you may sleep with Mama and Papa tonight, and we'll let the big girls giggle together by themselves. Christy pouted, and it was clear that she was about to argue. Mama, will you tell a special story tonight? Her mother said. One just for you. About a king? Christy asked dubiously. About a king, if you wish, Mama replied. All right then, but there better be a queen too, Christy said. That's where we're going to stop, right there. So, I want you to think, what do you think is going to happen? What is going on? Why is Ellen going to stay with the Johansons? Why are Mr. and Mrs. Rosen going to visit relatives? What might have been said during their church service, their synagogue service in the morning? So I'll be back tomorrow. I'll read a couple more chapters, and I want you to think. I want you to, if you have those packets, continue to go through, and you can do it on Number the Stars or the book that you're reading. As soon as I get an update, I will let you guys know. I love you. I miss you. I hope you're having a good day. Bye.